OG. That's the OG right there, man. He may be the same age as me, but he's the OG. Don't get it twisted. Anunoby is here in New York right now. Listen, you got my reaction, Zach. You know where I'm going here. Okay, I'm happy, you know. What should, excuse me, actually, that's the last topic question at the bottom ticker. Gotta read, folks. Will the OG Anunoby trade elevate the New York Knicks, Zach?
Yeah, well, so a couple things on the trade. My reaction initially on Saturday afternoon, I was pretty surprised. And I'm not saying that was because it was like a good or a bad trade, but, the Knicks lost a tough game on Friday night to the Orlando Magic. I didn't necessarily think that a big trade would be coming in reaction to that. But R.J. Barrett and Immanuel Quickley are two guys that the Knicks have drafted, the Knicks have developed, that have turned into two pretty solid players. So it's definitely hard to see them let go. But anyone who's watched and followed the NBA over the course of the last few years, the last few months, knows that OG Anunoby has been a very valuable trade piece. Like, there have been a ton of teams that have wanted him. Masai Ujiri with the Raptors is one of those guys. Like, I've heard people compare him to like a fantasy football GM. Like, he's not going to make a trade unless he thinks it 1,000% benefits him. And I think these two sides were a good match for a possible trade, because the Knicks wanted to get rid of R.J. Barrett's contract. As good of a player as he's been, I think it's clear that is just not a deal that's going to age well. And Immanuel Quickley, he's a very good young player, but the Knicks and his team, his camp, they couldn't come to an agreement on a deal prior to the season, and the writing was kind of on the wall that he was not going to be back in New York after the season. And with OG, he is one of the best defenders in the league. I watched a little bit of that game against the Timberwolves on yesterday, I should say. And it was evident to me that the Knicks really did a good job, like, elevating from the energy he was giving them and his ability to switch on defense. Like, 1 minute he was guarding Karl Anthony Towns, and the next minute he was guarding Anthony Edwards. And he did a really good job defending those guys. So I do think that although a lot of Knicks fans are going to miss Immanuel Quickley, and it's going to be tough to let go of R.J. Barrett, R.J. was a contract that they wanted to move on from. The only way they were going to do that was by giving up Quickley. And as good of a young player as he is, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world, because you were probably going to lose him for nothing in the offseason. And I do think OG is definitely someone that makes this Knicks team better. I honestly think this was a deal that worked for both teams. I think that Quickley in Toronto is going to be a factor. I think that's a little bit more of a natural fit that will give him more minutes. RJ he's from Toronto. Like, he obviously grew up a Raptors fan. That's a good fit as well. So yeah, I think this was a good deal for both sides. I really do.
Yeah, I do too. I think the Knicks roster pre-OG Anunoby trade was poorly constructed. Guys weren't able to reach their ceilings. Guys like R.J. Barrett, guys like IQ. And I think a lot of that has to do with the guard play that we had. We had a lot of guards on this team that really couldn't space the rock like that, especially R.J. Barrett. I believe 75.3% of his looks is at the rim, being that forceful driver to the cup that he is, but still is not a major threat from three-point land. And we need guys that could complement Jalen Brunson's on-ball creation along with Julius Randle and what he could do. Those are our two scorers. We need somebody to complement them well. And that's why every contender wanted OG, because he doesn't tamper with the roster. A move is not going to set your roster back to set it forward. It's going to literally ease right into the flow of the offense, right into the flow of the team in general, because of what he can do offensively and defensively, being that 3-and-D wing that he is. And immediately when you watch that game last night, in the afternoon, when it came on around 3:00 against the Timberwolves, the best team in the Western Conference right now, he was able to literally guard Anthony Edwards right out the gate. A guy that can match up against, one of the best wings in the game, Anthony Edwards. And he was able to match up on him. And, he showed the ability to move without the ball. There was a couple sequences where he cut to the basket and had easy dunks, for easy points. He shot a couple 3-pointers. He finished with 17 points in the game, and he made an impact immediately. That's what I'm talking about. A lot of people is looking at this trade. Oh, you gave up RJ, you gave up IQ. IQ is the higher upside player out of this group. And maybe he is, but he doesn't impact our team right now. I get it. When he was on the floor, our net rating goes up, all those fine stats and all that, but we didn't have the minutes for him. And he's a very on-ball dominant player. Okay, I think his fit with the young bull over there, Scotty Barnes, is gonna work well in tandem over there. I think it's a great fit for him over there. I don't know about RJ, but he's coming home, so I guess that's a good fit. But when you look at OG, I think it's a good fit with our team right now, and that's why when the move happened, I was excited. I listen, I wasn't looking around to see who was excited or not. I knew that it was an excitement there because of what I know OG can bring. We know we lost Mitchell Robinson. We are losing a big part of our defense. We know how important Mitchell Robinson was in that series against the Cavaliers in the first round and how he was the most valuable player of our team in that series. We get a guy that literally is the best defender on the team immediately as he walked into the door. And that's going to raise our ceiling for this year in the short term and potentially for the long term. Maybe this is a chess move to make another move at the deadline or during the offseason to go and take that next leap. Because the one thing I don't want the Knicks to do, and I said it in the offseason, is to similarly take that step back that we did when we made the playoffs the first time a couple years ago, where we didn't make the playoffs after that. No, we made the playoffs. We made the second round of the playoffs. The goal should be competing for a championship. And I think OG Anunoby brings us closer to doing that, along with a potential another move that we can make, whether it be at the deadline or whether it be in the off season. But as far as
hold on, before you go in
ahead.
there, I just want to respond to that. Like, I think it's a good point you bring up. Like, overall, this is definitely a move that makes sense. It makes the team better right now, but I'm wondering how much better does it make it? And the thing about R.J. Barrett that's interesting to me is he had a very like up and down tenure with the Knicks. Like, he had some very good moments, he had some not so good moments. But like, as a Knicks fan, do you regret not giving him up 2 years ago for Donovan Mitchell in the offseason? Because that was really the final piece. Like, they wanted RJ. Leon Rose refused to give him up. We know he ended up going to Cleveland. And I'm just wondering, like, do the Knicks like even have enough assets after this move to like make another big trade? Because as good as OG is, and I like him a lot, like in terms of the team this year, I don't really know how much he improves the team's ceiling. Like, I still think the Knicks could win a playoff series, maybe two. I don't know how much longer they could go than that. And also, I don't even know who the guy you would want to bring in is. Like DeMar DeRozan, like DeJounte Murray. Like, those are good players, but is it even worth it to make a move like that? And that's why I brought up Donovan Mitchell, because I know he's not the perfect fit next to Jalen Brunson. Like, you could have some concerns there with both those guys being small guards that aren't really great on the defensive side, but would the Knicks be in a better spot with him right now? I don't know. So I think the Knicks are going in the right direction. Like, I don't want to sit here and crush them. If we look back to where they are right now compared to, even 3 or 4 years ago when this was the laughing stock of the NBA and no one wanted to come here, it's clear that this is a well-run, organized franchise that is clearly making strides. They won their first playoff series in a decade last year. They're playing good basketball right now. But like, how do you feel about the future and a possible move that they could make? Is there even one on the table you could look at right now and say, okay, that's what I want them to do?
I mean, look, before I get to that move, I want to address the R.J. Barrett, thing that you brought up about him and, the Jazz and the potential Donovan Mitchell trade that could have went down. I want to make one thing clear because I had a debate with my dad about that just a couple days ago, like 2 days ago, to be exact. And a lot of people think that, R.J. Barrett was the cream of the crop. And I understand that we paid him in the middle of trade talks with Donovan Mitchell. I felt the timing was a little bit strange and odd that we paid him because he was probably going to be one of our big trade assets along with IQ in a potential deal, maybe another player, some draft picks to get the deal done to bring in Donovan Mitchell and all that. And we paid him in the middle of those talks. And kind of the timeline of events is kind of odd that Donovan Mitchell gets traded a week later after that. And a lot of people took that as, oh, okay, you paid Donovan Mitchell. You paid RJ. I'm going to trade Donovan Mitchell somewhere else. But I do want us to realize the history here that I think it was more so about the draft picks that, the pick bandit, okay, likes to take Danny Ainge, because Danny Ainge, nobody has accumulated more picks than Danny Ainge over the last couple of years in the sport of basketball. So when you look at the 8 first rounders that we had, I think that was the common denominator there. Like R.J. Barrett, take it or leave it. He probably should have been in the deal. He probably could have been in the deal. But it would have had to be multiple. They would have robbed us because they know we had it, right? When you know somebody has it and a guy as spiteful as Danny Ainge is, they want it, okay? And they'll take less from somebody else that don't have it because they know we have it and we're not giving it to them. So I think it had to do a lot more with the draft picks than R.J. Barrett. And R.J. Barrett had a good year the offseason that we paid him. He took a leap, but he took a step back. And I think that had to do with Jalen Brunson coming on to the team because now there's not a lot of opportunities for his game and his style, being a guy that, takes it to the rack and he's not a floor spacer. So it was a bad fit. We had to get rid of him. We had to get rid of the contract. And I think we did that in this deal. Now, as far as the next deal that could be made and answering your question, I'm not sure what the deal is, okay? But I do think a deal is going to have to be made to get us over the top. Now, who's that guy? I'm not sure, but I think patience is the virtue here, Maybe we try to get Embiid, obviously, we'll see what happens with him in Philly. And if they lose in the playoffs in the second round again, maybe Joel Embiid gets fed up and wants a new situation. But I think patience is key. I think we was patient with all the moves that happened thus far, and OG was the perfect piece for our roster to make it complimentary. And I think we need to make that move, and the next move will come when it comes. And I'm gonna leave us with that.
All right, one last point I want to bring up about the Knicks. I want to give some credit to Julius Randle. I think he's playing some really good basketball right now, and I think it's just such an interesting dynamic because I feel like he's one of those guys where until he proves he could do it on the biggest stage in the playoffs, Knicks fans are going to have some trust issues with him based on, some of the performances we've seen in recent years. But there's no denying, like, he's had a great season so far. This team is playing really well. Before we wrap with the Knicks here, Lil, I'll just ask you, like, has Randall's performance so far this season impacted how you feel about the ceiling of the team this year? And do you trust him more going forward in the biggest games, in the biggest moments?
I mean, look, I'm impressed with Julius Randle. He always has taken strides in his game. I understand he gets the flack, even from me from time to time. I wasn't fond of the playoffs last year. I was not, happy, including the playoffs last year when we got bounced against the Hawks. But he always has elevated his game. No matter what you want to say about him, being a threat from three, his playmaking ability as well has elevated since he came to New York, and his overall game has elevated since he came to New York. When you talk about a guy, for example, that I like to compare him to, Zion Williamson don't have a three-point shot. So that number one pick that a lot of people was like, oh, you didn't get Zion Williamson, it's over. We know that his availability is in question. We can't question that about Julius Randle. He's playing every single game, and he doesn't have a developed three-point shot. Julius Randle does. So say what you want about Julius Randle and him chucking at times and all that, not trusting his teammates at times. He has elevated his game since he's been on the Knicks, and I have to respect that. Now, as far as the ceiling, I do think we need another piece. I don't think we can win a championship in the finals, realistically, with Julius Randle as our number two. As our number three, sure, but not as our number two. So whatever that move is, and I'm not sure, I told you, I don't know what that move is, but whatever that move is, we need to be patient and make that move. And I think we'll be able to, be in distance to win an NBA Finals. I don't think it's too far away, but we do have to be patient. And we don't need to tamper with our picks to make a boneless move that does not make sense. Like adding DeJounte Murray, who, come on, like two guys that do the same thing. We need to be smart and we need to be patient. And I think that's how we win the finals. And Julius Randle may be a part of that. He may be the trade piece to bring that guy over here. I don't know. We'll see. But my last point real quickly, Zach, about OG Anunoby and that deal is when you compare him to a guy like Zach Levine and his market, prior to this trade around the league, it's night and day. And Zach Levine is a guy that could get you 20 a night, 20 plus a night. Okay. But at the end of the day, those things don't matter. It's about what you could do and how you can help a championship contender. And that's why Zach Levine don't really have no value. And OG Anunoby is a guy that the Grizzlies offered 4 first-round picks for, that multiple teams wanted. The Warriors. I mean, you look at every contending team, the 76ers, they wanted OG Anunoby. Everybody wanted OG Anunoby because of the value that he brings to the team. So I get it. IQ is a big loss. I think he's going to probably start averaging 20 a night in Toronto. I think he has that type of ceiling once his game grows and him being a better overall playmaker and not just an on-ball guy. However, I am pleased with the trade. It's a trade that had to be done, and I'm pleased with it. And, we'll go from there.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. We've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, or leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. It's all ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.